Interesting enough, you're wearing white and I'm wearing white.
I was about to say we didn't hey folks, we didn't even message each other about this. I was just like, I just need to I gotta wear my usual hashtag done because that's just the sentiment that I feel every day.
Yeah.
But I was like,
Hashtag
it's a
done.
little chilly here in North Carolina. I want to grab the most neutral hoodie I can find. Well done, sir. Well done.
All right. So today's topic. What is topic number one that we're going to talk about?
The first one was the article I sent to you, which was sent to me, and I got to give credit. Another Scrum Master that I've worked with, Scott McConnell. I did want to give him props for this. He sent this over to me because he listens to our podcast, and he's had similar experiences to this. And this is the Demotion of Scrum into Waterfall. And this is the one where I was like, God, Richard, we've beaten this to death, but it just, there's more and more articles coming out there. And I know that a lot of coaches and Scrum Masters are running into this. I just came from a meetup last week where a lot of folks were talking about just, and I'm going to use the word hijacked. I've probably used it before, but it is how, Scrum, the framework, is being hijacked. And it's being hijacked in a way where it's, folks who aren't familiar with Agile or software development conflate the two. And what they're conflating is Scrum, Agile is Scrum, and then they sneak in all these waterfall practices in the name of Scrum. And a lot of folks are talking about that. I have experienced, we've experienced that in our careers, and it's frustrating.
It's like The Walking Dead.
Yeah. Oh my God. What a great way to put it.
It keeps coming up.
It
never dies.
It keeps coming back. Yes.
So one of the things that I have going on is, as a young Agilist, I struggle with it. But I've gotten to the point where the phrase I'm going to use is, people don't know Agile. Most of the time it's unintended. They don't intend to make it that way. It's just that their background, they're more familiar with a traditional way of doing things, and they're trying to map the two.
Yes.
And I do this too. And I'm trying to map Safe and Scrum at scale, like trying to map those things out. And it just creates, my brain just go, crazy with it. And I realize you can't map those things. They are not one-to-one. And Scrum and Waterfall, and I would say traditional way of doing project management is very similar, right? And early on, I hear this. I'm talking to a friend of mine. I say, "Hey, I'm going to be a Scrum Master," and she's like, "Great, I'm using Scrum right now." I said, "How is that experience?" "It's horrible." What do you mean horrible? I'm excited, right? I'm here. Why is it horrible? It's just another way to make sure we do work every 2 weeks. Now, instead of a deadline, now I've got deadlines every 2 weeks. So guess what? I'm stressed every 2 weeks. I'm like freaking out every 2 weeks, right? So this whole idea of trying to fit work in and trying to plan work and estimate work and things like that, it is just driving developers nuts. It is seen as a process. It's seen as a project management process tool.
Yep.
And that's what's caused all these things. Even today I was, popping up LinkedIn. I saw Alistair Coburn commenting on a post by an individual where doesn't just say, "Hey, Scrum sucks because it doesn't consider the product owner side of things," right? It doesn't do that. So we need that. We need this. We need discovery. We need all these things. And then I'm like, sounds like Waterfall.
It does. It does.
You need design. You need all these things, and we need interesting. So of course, I like Alistair Coburn's response. Like, you are right. Scrum doesn't think about all those things. Not meant to be.
It doesn't mean, and this is the thing, I don't want to say that it is right or wrong to do that, because I think that every organization needs to do its thing. Hey, if you want to do all your design up front and you want to do all your user testing up front and then go build it, go ahead. My beef is don't say you're doing, don't say it's Scrum, and don't say it's the Agile mindset, because it's not. You're doing everything up front, and you're not allowing for uncertainty and doing the discovery as you go on the journey of building what you're building.
And you touch on that, right? The uncertainty. So to identify your work, whether is there uncertainty, whether do we know or not, there's always assumption. So software development, there's tend to be an assumption that we know our client, we know what they want for software side, right? Even, and this includes those folks that creates framework API for people to connect to the backend services. There's always, we're gonna go build this because we know that you're gonna use this, right? This assumption that, if we build it, you will come, right? And this concept, and they overbuild, right? Now this concept to them, now this whole thing is changing. It's hard for them. I had an individual asking me, Richard, I'm doing Scrum. What's wrong with what I got? I pull out the burn down and said, look, it's a flat line, right at the end. Last day, there's a drop, and it's like, what is wrong with that, Richard? I have 2 weeks to do my work. That's it. As long as I finish everything in 2 weeks, why should you care? Right? I said, oh, interesting enough. Well, let's talk about risk.
Finish it and it works. If it works, I mean, who the hell am I to?
Right. So then we jump into, well, let's talk about risk. What's the risk of you not finishing it? Right. And so for us that are in doing this, is that why do we want this step down work? It's all about de-risking, right? I know what could be done. Instead of having it the last day, even got 5 things, everything 80%. Nothing gets done. The risk of not meeting, right? So that pops in my mind. So a lot of those things, right? So what if Scrum? So what we're talking about here is going back to it. Scrum is being used as a waterfall way of doing work. In other words, here's my set process at the beginning of the process. The manager, whatever it is, the team lead will say, "Team, what can you guys commit to?" All right, it's going to be 50 stories. At the end, I expect you to get all 50 stories done. Right?
Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, that's when they leave the station. That's how it feels.
Right, that's how it feels. So, what other anti-pattern behavior do we see? Well, one, I see people putting work into the sprint. Like, if I put more in, they will do more. If I put less in, they are not going to do more. They're not going to pull in work. They're going to relax. So I need to pull more stuff in. That's one anti-pattern, right? And then it becomes, you said 50 stories. Why is there only 5 stories done? Why is there only 10 stories? Why is it not done? Right? So there's some anti-pattern behavior.
And then it just creates a vicious cycle, because what'll happen is that the team psychologically feels, oh crap, I only got 5 done. I still got 45 out there. We're just going to roll the 45 over, and we're just going to keep going. And we're going to add 5 more and pray that maybe we'll get more than 5 done. It's like, guys, what are you doing? Like, if anything, you're making, from the team's perspective, you're making life so much more difficult on yourself, because you're projecting something that's unrealistic. And you're also feeding, in my opinion, you're feeding the beast, which is like, oh, if I throw 50 things at them, it makes me feel so good that they leave this, the start sprint planning with 50 things. They're going to be so busy. It's like, that's not the point of this.
You got, and this got walked into, another revelation I had, capacity planning. We love capacity planning. People love capacity planning, right? And that's one. Why is that a bad thing? Capacity planning is about, let's look at your calendar, Charles. How much time do you have? That's going to fit work in there. I see this gap here. Let's put more work in. So it's the whole idea of the, driving down the road. There's emptiness on the road. I'm going to fill the road with cars. What's going to happen? My flow slows down. We're going to get traffic jam, things like that, right? But people don't see that. It's like, I hear what you're saying, Richard, but it's software. It's not driving cars down the road. That's not going to happen. So we get into that. And then the other thing is action for bias, right? Like, I hear this. And now I'm getting to where you're like, what does it mean by action bias? We're going to do it. We're going to do it. So this feeling that we have, if we do a lot of stuff, it makes us feel like we're moving forward. Like I'm doing 5 things at the same time. It makes us feel like we're moving forward, right? When in reality, we're not. It's just your whip's too high.
No, and for me, I think that the word that resonates with me when I see this, when I see somebody stuffing traditional uh, development into software, and I mean product development in general, it's a sense of control. And even the article says it's a false sense of control.
Yeah.
If we go back 20, 30 years when we were doing just waterfall all the way around, we all felt great because we were doing JAD sessions at the beginning, and we outlined every possible iteration that could happen, and we're going to build it and it's going to be perfect. And it never worked. So then we take the nomenclature that is Scrum, and we're like, oh yeah, so we're going to replace planning with design. So we're going to have our designers come up with these beautiful designs, and then they're going to get it user tested, and then they're going to have an MPS score of 98.
Yeah.
Oh my god, a great MPS score. But is anybody using it? No, this is just an empty shell. It's like, this doesn't tell you anything. Like, this is just a false sense of like, oh, our designs are great.
Scrum as a waterfall is just because we're used to waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
Even
It's
though
something familiar.
what 20 years in for Scrum, there are a lot of folks that haven't actually seen it.
It's what I wonder, thinking about how you're saying The Walking Dead, how it is always going to kind of creep up. So eventually Waterfall will fade. And I'm starting to see it. Like right now, Waterfall is fading in name only because it's seeped into Scrum.
Yeah.
So you think, like, when our kids start getting into the development world, will they be looking at Scrum and like, oh my God, Scrum. Oh, I hate that thing. So you already hear it. You already see it. And then they're going to be looking at it as like, oh my God, that's so archaic. Why did you guys even do that? We do this now.
Yeah. And it goes back to the purpose of it, right? So I'm struggling with capacity planning, right? Mm-hmm. We need to do capacity planning. I'm like, capacity plan, that's interesting. Let me look at my calendar. Oh my goodness, my calendar is all filled in. Well, I need to facilitate a meeting. I need time to think. I need time to design it. When am I going to have time? It's filled with meetings after meetings after meetings. I don't have time. I'm fully allocating everything to work at this point. I don't have free time to actually do actual thinking work, do actual design work.
Oh, no, there's no time to think.
No time to think, right?
Think.
So that's that capacity planning. I think that's to me, that's an old way of doing things, old way of thinking, right? When you do that, I think it's just trying to feel 100%. And I remember having a conversation with a developer out of where was it? Can't remember the country, Romania. And this was a long time ago. Richard, we need to stop planning 100%. We need to start planning for 60%. Mm-hmm. I struggle with that. Like, oh my goodness, what do you mean 60% of the work?
Oh my God. You tell that to somebody who does Six Sigma and Lean and all that, their heads explode.
Yeah.
Huh, 60%, all that waste.
All that waste, exactly all that waste we can get a plan. Well, we're gonna lock it down to 2 weeks. Let's look at 2 weeks every week. Are you in? Are you in? Are you in? Okay, you got work. Who's got work? Right? Scrum, Waterfall. And the day's gonna go away. Scrum isn't meant to be all there is to it. We're so used to the old Waterfall way of doing things that we need to design work. We need to do all these things. Now, not saying those things have no value. It may have value. It's just that you might not need Scrum.
No, exactly. You don't have to it's not necessary. That's the one thing that people are like, oh, you have to have it to be able to deliver. Like, no, you don't. But I think that I agree with you in that over time, I think it'll fade. It'll turn into its own monster. It's already turning into a monster.
Yeah.
But it will fade. I think the generations to come, the new developers, the new leaders to come, I think that look at folks in their 20s now, maybe even in their 30s, are starting to become more comfortable with this. And I look at schools, I'm like, guys, I wish you could teach us about technology. They're becoming more comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first big paradigm shift that needs to happen, is that our generation, and I know I'm painting with a broad brush, we've been programmed that you had to know everything and it needs to be perfect, and you can't do anything until it's 100% done. Whereas, younger folks, I see them joining communities of startups and all that, and they're like, hey, you know what? I understand your product's going to be buggy, but I'll be part of the beta. I'll give you feedback.
Yeah.
I'll do this. I'm okay with it because your product adds value, and I want to be part of that journey. That's where I kind of see that wave coming in. And I think that's what will wash away over that. I think we're years away from it. Yeah. And I do think that there's going to be folks who are still trained in the traditional fashion that are kind of be holdouts.
Well, yeah. And so as coaches, right, when we walk into an engagement, right, what do? We look at the people that we coach, the teams that we coach, the organizations that we coach. And where do we start? We start where they're at. Mm-hmm. Right. You kind of get a sense of, what can they accept, right? Based on that, then you introduce agile way of thinking into it, right? And that could be as simple as, Scrum by itself. So you don't do all of it. And that part by itself also is a prompt that leads us into why Scrum is more like Waterfall for most folks, because we're trying to connect the dots for them. So what do? I try to say, okay, what is that person's background? Waterfall, I know that. Mm-hmm. So how do I connect for him so that I can bring him over to start him or this person, not him, her, whatever that is, this person, right? And then to slowly transition them over to the next stage, right? So it is a prompt. It is the way that we do things as well. And then most people just get stuck. Mm-hmm. Why do we have people complaining about SAFe? SAFe is familiar to them, so therefore they're easy for them to adopt SAFe. Are there value from them changing the way to do it? Yes, there are value. Are there a lot of value? Well, you get 1x, 2x, maybe. You don't get the 10x, right? No. It's in the switch of the mindset when we get to the 10x thinking. Yes. Right. So that's the hard part, is to see whenever some folks say, okay, I got 1x, I'm happy. Leave me alone. Right. And then they go into the next place, like, this is how we did it. Yeah. Right. And they bring that along. Right. So that's the challenges. As coaches, we are always faced with that.
I'm not willing, but I like to end it at what you said. And I think this is a reminder to folks who either work with coaches, or you're with a coach, or you're looking to hire a coach. I think that some folks bring in coaches to push people into a certain thing immediately, like, why haven't they changed, or why hasn't this been installed? But what you said is so key, is that a coach first meets the team, the organization, where they're at, and then goes from there. If a coach comes in and starts saying, we're installing, I think that's the word I like to use, installing stuff, then I'm like, you're not coaching, you're just pushing, and they may not be ready for it. A good coach listens, takes their time, and meets that team or that group where they're at, and then takes them to wherever destination is right for the company. And that doesn't mean Scrum, it doesn't mean Kanban, it doesn't mean any framework. It may mean a variety of those things. It may mean none of those things.
Yeah.